please allow me to move forward with our next session, which is a fireside chat under the title Resilient Growth Hacks for SMEs, Challenges and Investment Potentials in Asia's Digital Age. In the midst of digital transformation in the industries, SMEs are increasingly acknowledged as key players in the global market, representing 30% of GDP and 70% of the workforce in Asia countries. SMEs constitute a considerable opportunity for returns in direct investing. Yet, it is important to have a clear picture of what they face in terms of challenges and opportunities in the Asian context. The discussion aimed to fill the chasm between investors and SMEs, highlighting investment trends and showcasing how digital tools help grow. For this session, we have our interviewer, Ms. Drishti Mehri, the CEO of Quick Guy, Director of India-Bangladesh Chamber of Commerce. Please join me in welcoming her to the stage. Ms. Drishti is going to interview our panelists for today. Our first panelist is Mr. Chen Ma. He's the head of China Research, Chief Representative of Asia Pacific Institute of International Finance. Please join me in welcoming him to the stage with a round of applause. We have next Mr. Raman Chandaran Munyandi, the CEO and co-founder of Asia Mobility. I guess he needs a little bit of warm welcome. Thank you. And we have Sheikh Muhammad Nu'man, the founder and CEO of Pegasus Capital Investments. Please join me in welcoming to the stage, Mr. Sheikh. Drishti, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the session on resilient growth hacks for SMEs. Welcome to the session. As we all know that SMEs, particularly since the discussion is going to be in the Asia Pacific region, about 17% of the national GDP in the Asia Pacific is actually contributed by the SMEs, and especially focusing on the lower income market in India, it's about 40 to 50%, and it goes up more in Asia, in the Asian Asian markets, particularly in Malaysia and Singapore. Since we have a diverse set of panelists among us today who come from the Asia Pacific region, we will be discussing the conversation around the different challenges and what could be the different opportunities for SMEs to overcome all of these challenges. So I welcome all of the panelists to the discussion today. First of all, let us start off with talking about what is the barrier for SMEs to go to a global market. So my first question is to Mr. Genma. So we know that SMEs, when it comes to the different challenges, one of the major challenges that they face is the limited access to financing. How do you think, especially with regards to the Asian market, how do you think the access to capital is right now being accessed by the SMEs in several sectors? And if you think that there are any alternate financing opportunities that SMEs can also sort of explore, particularly focusing on the fact that if they do not have a good credit history or like enough transactional history, given that they are small businesses, how could they approach in order to ensure to survive and sustain in the market?
Yeah, sure. Good questions. Of course, the small businesses, they encounter a whole range of difficulties when they grow. They're not very well known. They do not have a deep pocket. They cannot do much marketing. Nobody knows them. And among them, among all those issues, finance is one of the difficulties they are facing. Here's the stage of how SME would grow. When they started, oftentimes they were just financed by family friends. I have a very good friend run a pretty successful business. Her started her business with finance from her neighbors. Okay, that's first stage. But that's how you get started. Very soon, you need to seek money from incubators, angel investors. Now it's become very difficult because you don't know them. They don't know you. So that's why information and networking is so important. Then I find out, because my son, she runs small businesses. I find out they basically network in very specialized industrial conferences. If you're gaming industry, you go to game development conference. If you are in machinery, you go to machinery conferences. And you meet your peers, you meet the successful companies who want to invest in new ones. Then in the next stage, the SME need ventures, private equity capitals. They become even harder. But somehow, I think Asian companies are pretty lucky, especially companies in China. They're very lucky in that aspect. We can see right now, some of the industrial giants, they started from small businesses like Alibaba. Now, they managed to acquire finance from both a domestic and a global private equity firms, like Tencent. Tencent is a giant these days. Tencent got its first investment from where? Do you know? From South Africa, from Netspert, South Africa. Alibaba got its first private equity investment from SoftBank in Japan. So in those days, the listing in the U.S. stock market was still possible. So that's why they were able to attract a lot of private equity investment from London, from New York, from Tokyo. These days it will be a bit harder. Now, I want to say one thing. Small businesses will encounter a new challenge down the road. With a tariff in front of us, large corporate, they can relocate. Toyota can open factory in the United States, but small business cannot. They can only export. So we need to find a way to beat the tariff. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ma. Since we're talking about the challenges faced by SMEs, and the first thought was regarding the access to capital, my question right now is to Mr. Ramachandran. I understand your company is based in Malaysia, but you do work with global clients as well. Realizing that there are several market and operational challenges when it comes to SMEs, primarily focusing on the lack of the global market knowledge and the scaling limitation. What has been your experience in working with SMEs, especially with context to how, despite being a regional focused business, how can they sort of have, focus on going international, and how can that can be a scaling initiative for SMEs?
Sure. Thank you, Drishti, for the question. As a startup ourselves, based out of Malaysia, we do have clients that are SME in nature. So I'm going to answer that question with wearing the hat of my clients, right? And how clients who are SME in nature, by working with a startup like us, we have actually helped them become regional players. One clear example, and so I think drawing from Mr. Jean's explanation about how some of the largest startups in the world began as SMEs. And it's only when you start thinking like a startup can the SME become regional or global, right? Which is a bit of a reverse logic. But the nature of SMEs is that it is always primed for growth and not for scale. So you grow in a market, you grow in a country, but you don't have scaling ambitions because your investors is your neighbor who just wants you to grow but not scale, right? But the moment you start thinking like a startup, you start attracting investor interest who's going to force scale upon you. And that's where the difference is, right? Scaling and growth, there's a big difference. Growth is, I can grow the business and I put in more resources at more cost and grow the business. Spend for more marketing, spend for more advertising, hire more people, grow my costs so that I can grow my revenue, my top line. Scaling is the opposite, right? You know, scaling is how can I grow as much as possible without growing my cost base, right? So that requires innovation. That requires really a strong leadership team. And that requires basically attracting the right talent. SMEs don't do that very well, right? And so a case study for us is one of our clients that we're working with right now is a market leader, but in a city only. They're probably the #1 school transport service provider in Kuala Lumpur, right? But that's it. They have no idea how to scale beyond that. And so by partnering with us, we taught them how to think outside the box. We taught them how to start thinking like a startup, right? And then partnering with us, that we can then deploy our technology to their legacy business model and give them tools now in order to scale their business, not just nationally, but regionally and globally. Because without technology, it's really hard to scale, right? So if but if you're a tech-enabled school transporter, now the world is at your doorstep. And so that's a clear example of how an SME, by thinking like a startup and partnering with startups, you are then able to co-create and you are able to then scale regionally and globally. So that's one real example. That's a real life example happening right now back home in Malaysia.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Since we are on the lines of discussion of how technology can also play a big factor for scaling into global market for SMEs, Mr. Noman, you have had a diverse experience in several sectors with digital assets, with green energy, and including the sustainability sector as well. Could you help us touch upon understanding perhaps what could be the alternate investment opportunities for SMEs in order to scale? Perhaps guiding us through how blockchain, or particularly the digital asset space, can also become important for SMEs to scale in terms of innovation.
Yes, sure. So, lucky to see that we have almost 95% audience from Africa. So we are talking about the Asian countries over here. But it's similar, same problem with the African continent and the Asian continent, the labor force. And if we, as an investor, wherever we are investing, we are trying to invest in the people of the company, with the visionary leader who are the founders of the company, so that we can lead the products and the companies with the same mindset. And in the Asian continent, whatever the companies we've been receiving as a startup for the investment, there are some sort of problem for education of this developing technology, particularly AI things. China is the only country right now leading in the world in the AI. Like we recently would have seen this experience of DeepSeek, the way they crashed the US market. And similarly, if the countries parallel to the Chinese continent, if they try to educate and get more details about the AI, blockchain, Web3, particularly digitalization of their economy, educating the labor force, it will help to reduce the workforce and having more productivity in terms of business scaling and well results.
Perfect. So you did mention about the awareness that's required when it comes to emerging technologies, and AI and blockchain being one of the core focus. So if there's one key messages for SMEs to expand globally, and this is an open-ended question to all of you, given that some of you come from a finance expertise and some of you bring a more digital innovation expertise, what would be your key messages for SMEs to scale globally if they have to take a single approach?
Well, for the development, particularly, like we have one more project which we are doing the invoice financing. We have more than 30% portfolio from ADNOC. So this is our invention. And I'm working on two projects with the government of Singapore and with the government of Vietnam to do the invoice financing on a blockchain system. So it is really helping. It is already working, and it is really helping them to grow faster and getting their invoices cash within 48 hours from us. There is no human influence. That means there is no delay. There is no delay. There is more productivity. This is how we've been helping out and trying to be more educator to the communities and universities and colleges in these particular areas, and especially in Latin America as well. We are going and educating people that technology is very important. If any country who is a dead back economy, if they want to get rid of their dead economy or the trap of IMF, they must try to rule themselves under digital assets. The faster they get into the digitalization, the faster they get out of this trap.
Thank you so much. My follow-up question to Mr. Ma. Mr. Noman had just mentioned about invoice financing, and I understand it comes under the alternate financing opportunities. Is there any other opportunities that you think that SMEs sort of can explore, because that remains the core discussion, irrespective of having or not having enough cash flows?
Yeah, in fact, I didn't finish the previous answer. Now I can just follow up on this discussion. For SMEs to grow, you need a platform. It's very difficult for them to grow by themselves because you need a whole ecosystem. Just let's think of the marine biology. You need a whole ecosystem. So that is why companies like Alibaba are so important for SMEs. When Alibaba started, it's just a bunch of high school teachers, right, get together in someone's living room and start this thing to help people to put their product on their website to sell to the global customers. Do you know how many people are selling on Alibaba right now? How many small businesses are selling on Alibaba these days? 10 million. You have 10 million sellers right now and reaching global customers. So with a platform, the small business can ask a platform to the marketing, logistics, shipping, and insurance too. And those, then it also comes with the finance, because Alibaba can monitor all the transactions real time. They know your inventory, you know how quick you ship your product, they know your cash flow. So they can attach a credit score for you real time, so they can provide small finances, not only for the consumer, but also for the seller. So there's another source of finance.
So based on the conversation so far, I think we've well established the fact that digitalization will definitely play a core growth enabler for SMEs. And since Mr. Munyandi, you've been working in the mobility space and have been working very closely with SMEs, what would be your take on the digitalization as a growth enabler for SMEs? And if you perhaps can touch upon any case study that can also give more context to the room today.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the key things that we speak about is how do SMEs do it, right? How do SMEs embark on a digitalization plan without that SME losing its core focus, like as a service provider, as a retailer, or as an operator of some kind of a service, right? Without it having to turn into something else. You can't expect SMEs that are brick and mortar to suddenly embrace technology and become a technology company. That's not going to work, right? But what can work is SMEs, and I mentioned that earlier about that co-creation strategy, right? SMEs with a technology company, SMEs with a startup, right? Combining forces and being able to look at the best of both worlds. So don't try to become something that you're not, but you could have a mindset of a startup without you having to re-transform yourself into like a tech startup. You don't have to, right? So I give you a real life example here. Another example in Malaysia. So we are pioneers of demand responsive transit, technology in Malaysia, and that is on-demand public transport, right? So we combine the best of ride-hailing with the reliability of a public transport bus system, right? We combine that, so you've got on-demand rides, shared rides on larger capacity vehicles. Now, we provide the technology. We do not want to be the operator. We are providing the technology, and what we did was we then looked and found And we started with our client. Our client was using one of our other services, and they are a fleet operator. They have got experience managing public transport services. We then approached them and said, look, let's partner. You now become the first DRT operator using my technology. And what it does for them was, over the course of 2 years, they became the largest DRT operator in the country. They didn't build the technology, they did not understand how to do it, but they used the technology. We joined forces and said, look, let me build the tech. I don't want to be the operator. I don't want to manage fleets of vehicles. I don't want to manage drivers. You know how to do that. Let's partner with you, and I'll make you, and I will then expand another revenue channel for you, right? And so they are now the largest non-state-owned DRT operator in the country, right? They are an SME. They remain an SME. He has not become a startup. He has not become a tech company. But by partnering with us, right, we stuck in our lanes. So what I'm saying is that the tech startup also has a role to play here, right? In a co-creation venture, don't try to do everything on your own, right? So the tech companies focus on owning the technology roadmap. The SME focus on doing what you are great at, which is managing people, services, licensing, regulation, market access, do all of that. And you combine forces and you can co-create something that's really useful and something that can really move the needle for the city.
I think that's an excellent example on how one can leverage partnerships and collaborative opportunities for growth. My next question is to Mr. Numan. Given that we're talking about growth strategies for SMEs to tap into the global market, given in a time like today when there are so many conversation about the tariffs related to the exports market, and understanding that SMEs are one of the core contributors to the growth of especially emerging economies, SMEs again have limitations to competing with giants and bigger companies, right? And favoritism might come into the picture while making decisions related to compliances or securing big partnerships. What could be your take in this particular scenario for SMEs to scale when it comes to competing in an emerging market where giants also exist? And is blockchain an alternate approach that can be tapped into for SMEs to compete as well with larger companies?
There are a few countries, I will have a short answer. There are few countries in Asia, they have a lot of financial transactional issues to do the transaction on international level. But if they use the blockchain space, because the regulatory authority registered, regulated by their regulatory authorities under the Ministry of Finance, they can use this platform to do all kind of transaction worldwide. Like BRICS, they have launched the BRICS. Initially there were 5 countries, now there are most of the many countries, like UAE is there now, Egypt is there now, Saudi Arabia is there now in the BRICS. So that means they are diversifying the entire payment solutions for opening the entire world. If they want to do any kind of transaction legally, they can do using the blockchain space. They can do any kind of transaction. Secondly, if they've been talking about the buying and selling the products in relevant to the AI, for example, he's Anish Tanun bin Zayed Al Naya, and he was recently in the United States, and they've committed about $1.4 trillion of investment in 10 years' time in America. Meaning the 10 years investments is going to be in AI products. If it's not about Middle East, it's all about the world. The earlier we get into the technology is more helpful for any sector, not only for SMEs, and not any particular region. It is helpful for Africa, it is helpful for Asia, and it is helpful for the Middle East.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So as a closing remark, I think we've all realized that definitely for the growth, digitalization definitely plays a big role as a growth enabler for SMEs. Resilience and adaptability being another key factors. And given the alternate investment opportunities, particularly in invoice financing and leveraging emerging technologies like blockchain and AI plays a major role. Thank you so much to all the panelists for such a warm and insightful discussion, and thank you so much everyone for joining us today.
Thank you so much, our esteemed speakers. Let's pose for a group picture before introducing our next session.
Sure, thank you.